All right, so yesterday I spoke about this enormous divide in this country now between the have and have-nots. Particularly, we saw this, the Michigan consumer sentiment number on Friday still making headlines. It tumbled to one of the worst readings ever. And here's the thing that's really interesting. You have to notice that it's never, ever, ever approached. Take a look at this. It's never approached a high point back in 2000. So that's intriguing, right? They traded with the market hand in hand. But check this out. This is a chart of household wealth since the global financial crisis. And, well, you can see where just even since the Y2K bubble, look how many millionaires, how many rich folks we are. I mean, we have gotten so much richer, and yet where it's more pessimistic than ever before. Now, one of the reasons is hidden inside that report, right? Because even in that Michigan report, we find that the largest tercile of stockholders saw their sentiment climb 11%. Of course, you know, stockholders, asset holders, by and large, are baby boomers. And while they're keeping this economy afloat, I really sincerely worry that their spending is now an excuse for the Federal Reserve to keep the rest of the population down. I want to bring in Independent Institute senior fellow Judy Shelton. And Judy, you know, it seems to me that one problem I've always had was the Federal Reserve was designed to help banks, which is designed to help the upper end of the economy. But it feels, I think it's come through loud and clear. We had this crisis. And inflation went through the roof. You know, they printed up too much money. We had, you know, the Biden printed up trillions and trillions of dollars. So they became restrictive. And in that restrictive environment where their goal was to crush the economy, rich people just put money in money markets and got 5%. So if you've got money, you're still spending. You haven't missed a beat. But their restrictive policies are crushing Main Street, and they don't see it. This is what frustrates me.
Well, I think that's a problem that results when you have the fiscal part of government working at cross purposes with the Fed. So we run this perpetual deficit. So it's constant fiscal stimulus based on fiscal transfers, often to people who aren't working and being supported by the people who are working. And in the meantime, the Fed says, well, that can be inflationary. So we're going to run interest rates up high because that's the only way we know how to fight inflation. By restricting growth,
right,
by curtailing demand. Right. And so what they do is they're cutting off access to capital for the very people who could bring about increased supply, the small and medium-sized businesses who, if they could get capital, might expand plant and equipment, might hire people. And so I understand why we have the bifurcated economy, and people feel that the system is rigged against them, and that fosters a lot of cynicism toward government.
This morning, NFIB out with their sentiment number, or their version of it, availability of loans. It's been a negative number going back to 2000. It just stays in the negative. This gets back to your point, right? You know, for all the hand-wringing about the trillions of dollars we're using for data centers, you got small business folks saying, just give me a crumb, give me a little bit so I can build my business, so I can try to achieve the American dream.
Well, especially at a time when we see AI, and I welcome the increases in productivity, but that's great for the large corporations who can harness that kind of computing power. But this is a time when we're going to have to make transition in the economy. And we're innovative. We can come up with new jobs and new products. But you have to have the small entrepreneurial business be able to bring that creativity and to hire people. And the ones who get displaced by AI should have another creative outlet.
Right. You've talked a lot about the role of gold. Now, we know over the last several years, central banks outside of, maybe ECB and the Fed have been really buying up a ton of gold. In the last 2 years, China's led the charge. Explain why it's so critical and why it could be a key, I don't want to use the word salvation of our economy, but maybe that's it.
Well, I think it would be extremely helpful and strengthening if we combine the fact that we are the world's largest holder of official gold reserves with our other strong suit, which is we have the leading global reserve currency. I was in Europe a couple of weeks ago, and they're very disturbed that the euro has been displaced, that central banks now carry gold only second to the US dollar in their official reserves. I think that's a 1-2 punch for us. I would like to see the US Treasury next year, on July 4th, 2026, issue a long-term Treasury security that has a convertibility feature. So if you're a bondholder at maturity, you can have the right to be paid back principal in terms of a pre-specified amount of gold. In that way, you're making the dollar as good as gold. And I think it would be a real marker that we intend to go back toward sound finances and sound money.
You've been talking about the a healthy and fair economy, honest work, honest government, honest money, and I guess that's where it would start.
I really think so. I think we have to celebrate honest work, the people who actually make things, who produce goods and provide services. I think we have to demand honest government. What we have is just contemptible in terms of borrowing from the future to consume at present. I think that we need to guarantee sound money, and that's why I'm pushing for at least this special issuance to make that connection between solid and the fiat money.
When you were appointed to the Fed, a lot of people said, oh, she's a gold bug, and there's no way that we can do that. There's not enough gold out there. Our debt has gotten so high that maybe this could have been a great idea 20, 30 years ago, but it's not feasible anymore. What do you say to people about that?
Well, I'm not saying that we can make all of our money convertible into gold. What I'm saying is there has to be some kind of link. This is something Ronald Reagan talked about. If we had some kind of link between the dollar and gold,
right,
if we could make our currency the most trustworthy currency in the world, that would be significant. And that's what I'm talking about doing.
Yeah. I think a lot of us have taken that for granted, but we shouldn't. Judy, thank you very much. Great stuff. Appreciate
My pleasure,
it. Thanks a
Charles.
lot.
Thank you.